Hello there everyone, how you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/prorevenge. I know. Today's video is about, as of recording, gonna be 30 minutes late. I'm sorry. But if you want videos to come out on time, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below so I at least have enough people watching to make it worth uploading on time. Now, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Tricking my slacker coworker into sabotaging himself. I work in an office with a guy I'll call Seth. Seth is that coworker everyone knows. Lazy, always passing his work on to someone else, and somehow always getting away with it. He'll sit around on his phone or go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy who will show up late, make some lame excuse about traffic, and then disappear for lunch for 2 hours. For the past 6 months, Seth's favorite target has been me. He'll send emails asking if I can help out with a project. But what he really means is, do all the work and I'll take the credit. I complained to my boss a couple of times, but somehow Seth always managed to weasel his way out of trouble. The final straw came when he passed off a major report that was due to a client in 2 days, dumping it onto me the last minute. One day I casually asked him if he was good with Excel, and he admitted he didn't know much about it. Perfect. The next time Seth tried to dump a bunch of spreadsheets on me to organize for the next report, I agreed, but this time I embedded a series of hidden formulas into the documents. These formulas didn't do anything important, just enough to mess with the numbers if someone didn't know how to check for hidden cells. It took me a little time, but I was careful not to make it too obvious. The kicker? Every time Seth tried to copy and paste the data into his report, it would scramble everything just enough to be completely useless. On the day before the report was due, Seth slacked off like usual, assuming I had it handled like always. When the client called furious because the report was filled with nonsense numbers, Seth panicked. He rushed to fix it, but every time he tried to fix one part of the report, something else would break. He came to me, frantic, and asked for help. I acted confused and said, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Maybe it's a glitch." I gave him some vague advice and watched as he spent the entire day trying to salvage his mess. Our boss found out, and for once, Seth couldn't talk his way out of it. He got lambasted for screwing up such an important project, and was put on temporary leave without pay. I guess he'll be doing his own work from now on, eh? Cable company kept calling to recharge me, even after disconnecting services. I booked tech support to fix a non-existent TV box. This is a repost. Earlier post on petty revenge got removed. Stories from 2021. My old TV finally broke down, so I got a new smart TV. Couple weeks later, I realized that no one in the family watches any TV channels. Everyone goes for streaming content. I decided that it's not worth it to pay for the TV connection anymore. Now my TV connection is added into my phone plan along with my internet as well, so disconnecting it was not straightforward. It was a custom plan with its own dedicated relationship team. It took several calls to the team to find a resolution, which was to convert the TV connection to a prepaid one and then stop recharging. After the conversion was done, I got messages for a few weeks to recharge, and then finally a message to return the set-top box. I responded to that, and in a few days the box was collected from my place. Good riddance, or so I thought. Next started calls from random call centers for recharging. It felt different from the dedicated relationship team. I googled and found out this had become the practice in my country. The company had outsourced this part of the support to a third party, and they simply checked from the printed database about people who had a connection, but did not recharge last month. Since my disconnection was in the middle of the month and their printed database was from the beginning, they did not have the updated info. I tried my best to inform them about this to no avail. I started talking to callers, informing them of the fake problem my TV was having, connecting to the set-top box, and that multiple support requests have fallen on deaf ears. I also started recording the calls. The third caller took it seriously and booked tech support. I got a call from a field tech within hours. He came by, I greeted him with drinks and informed him about the real issue. We had a good laugh, and he suggested that I keep it up a few more times for good measure. After 8 tech support visits, they finally got the message. Got a call from a supervisor asking why I was booking tech support when I clearly didn't have a connection anymore. I mailed him the call recordings. He was pretty annoyed, but I stopped getting calls so much. Any call I get now, rarely, like once a couple of weeks, I just read from the same script, and if someone takes it seriously enough to try to book tech support, they get a short note against my ID to not bother this gentleman. Why am I booking tech support when I don't have a connection? Why are you responding to support claims if you know you don't have a connection? Well, anyway, that's a good revenge. On to the next story. If you're gonna steal the catalytics off my truck, you should have checked if they were actually functional first. Wasn't so funny when it was my turn. Was a fun morning at the beginning of last week, starting up my truck and waking everyone up at 2:45 a.m. to learn someone swiped the hollowed out cats. The idiots missed my neighbor's cameras that basically gave away who they were. It's 2 kids from the area who drive around in pretty busted up police Crown Victorias. I chose not to call the cops. Instead, I called one of my friends, who's code enforcement, and let him know what my plan was. And he relayed the info to the police that I was finally going to do a nuisance tow on that same Crown Victoria. The car they drive isn't street legal, as it has no license plate or insurance, or working taillights, and rattles like crud due to the trash sound system. They also spend their whole day at a chicken shack smoking. Not sure who they're getting money from, but I'm guessing stealing catalytics wasn't part of the equation. When I spotted a car sitting on a quiet street, I called it in and got the go-ahead to tow. I took it straight to the police station and tried to run over an owner check with the VIN number, only to find out it hadn't been registered since 2011, and the owner was someone other than the kids who sold them the car with no title because of all the back registration owed. The cop said we can go ahead and take it to the junkyard till they can get a black title, a certificate of destruction. By then, the 2 idiots were running all over town looking for their car, thinking it got stolen by one of their friends as a prank. The key lock was so worn out you could start it with any car key. They found it at the junkyard and tried to steal it from one of them, distracting the owner, and the other stealing their car, but the junkyard was aware of who they were, so they cut the drive shift off beforehand. I missed out on this part, but they got arrested for trying to steal their car back, and they watched as the junkyard used a crane to rip the car to shreds. When I saw what remains of it, looked like a toddler just ripped it to the bare frame out of curiosity. They've been out of jail since, but I haven't seen their trailer. I did a drive-by earlier and noticed a beater Jeep Liberty in their driveway, also with no plates, and already working with the cops on taking that too if I see it out in public, except I will not miss the show this time. Someone in the comments says, I've had it taken from 2 cars. These guys cause more damage than the value they get back. Not to mention the hassle it puts you through, and the police seem powerless or unwilling to do anything about it. Well done on you for justice served. Now on to the next story, shall we? Landlord put me through 3 years of hell. My landlord was a terrible human being. Honestly, calling him a human is even pushing it. Just a few things he has done to me over the past 3 years. Stole my dryer and other household products that are in the common area. Made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear. Tried breaking into my house. Retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot. He tried charging me an extra $150 a month. Mind you, I was never late with rent in 3 years except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair, so the next month was a couple days late. The list goes on. Now this apartment was nowhere near nice. I found out the plumbing was illegal. He left me with a porch for years that had severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was always falling down. gas heater was not up to code, and so on, so forth. I finally got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent $500 a month. He will do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left. I told him everything. The porch was finally replaced. It didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. I told him about the plumbing and the heater. I went on and on. The inspector came over the very next day. I saw him taking measurements. Each violation is $500 a day until fixed. I honestly don't know what happened, but my God, did it feel good to finally get him back. He's at the very least on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me I needed to be out at a specific time. I never responded, and where I live, that's not how it works. He tried to threaten me with the police if I wasn't gone. Well, I went to the police myself that morning to warn them. The landlord did come by, threatened me, and harassed me. I called the police and informed them I was in the right. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment. I had left to go to storage while I was gone. He nailed my door shut, and I told the police to get the supervisor because I was being harassed by this guy. Go figure, he left before the supervisor could get there. I'm positive he knew he'd be arrested on sight. Got the police report. They're charging him with the felony for breaking and entering. Fines plus a charge? Don't be a jerk to good people. Someone in the comments says, I had a landlord that threatened to evict us if our baby did not stop crying. In addition to a small discrimination settlement, I also got his unpermitted renovation of half the building red tagged by the building department. After we left, I ran into him, and he was still an asshole. I made sure to tell him I called the building department. Watching his head almost explode was quite nice. Shitbird. I'm looking to buy, but my current landlords don't even live in the state. I take care of any issues unless it's big. It's much better over here. We reverse gazumped a greedy landlord, and it was glorious. Gazumping occurs when an agent or seller accepts an offer you make to buy a property at an agreed price, but the property is sold to someone else. This usually happens when the vendor sells the property for a higher amount. This happened 15 years ago, and it's one of my proudest moments of my life. My best friend and her husband have 5 kids together. They lived in an expensive city and rented an old 4-bedroom house for $400 per week. The house was very run down with a disgusting kitchen and sink drains, but it was all they could afford at the time. Still, they made it work. The owner was a nice old lady who was extremely wealthy and very fond of my friend. She froze the rent for 5 years and promised to let them buy the house once they had saved enough money to get a loan from the bank, as she has helped other people in a similar way. They knew they could trust her, and so they saved every cent they could. It took them 5 years, but they finally told her they were ready. 2 days later, the nice old lady passed away before anything was put in writing. Enter the new owners, the lady's 4 children, each extremely wealthy in their own right. They inherited a huge portfolio of properties. When they first spoke to my friends, they assured them that the sale would still go through, but they would have to wait until probate had settled. Confident, my friends started making some changes to the place. They started by stripping wallpaper, painting, and making plans. Finally, probate was settled and the owners agreed to go ahead with the sale for the previously agreed price. My friends applied for the loan, but to their shock, it was refused. The owners had raised their asking price by $80,000 without telling my friends. To make things even worse, the house would be put on the open market. In 7 days, there would be an open house, and with the market the way it was, it would probably sell immediately. My friends were devastated. They might be able to borrow enough, but it would take longer than a week to get. To make matters worse, property prices had soared recently, and rents had gone up a lot while theirs had been frozen. Not only were my friends going to struggle to get the money, if the place was sold to someone else and they were asked to higher rent or were evicted, it would be nearly impossible to find an affordable place with more than 2 bedrooms. I was scared for my friends, but I was also incandescently angry. Those greasy sods were some of the wealthiest people in the city, and they were screwing over a struggling family for less than $20,000 each. They didn't need the money. It is pure greed, and it was obvious that they had always planned to do this. So while my friends scrambled to come up with the money, I started plotting. I looked up advice on what helps to make a sale. We needed to make the place as undesirable as possible, without making my friends look like bad tenants. Uncluttered, we moved all the furniture in from the walls, added some extra furniture and borrowed ornaments, and hung a load of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. The place felt a lot smaller. The smell. My friend boiled a head of cabbage on the stove and sprayed ammonia around the front and back doors, because it smells like the neighborhood cats have been marking their territory. And we also poured 24 rotten eggs down the drain to make it smell like sewer gas. The neighborhood. We obtained a moldy old couch and dumped it in the front yard of the neighbor across the road, with permission of course. Neighborhood number 2. We started calling for the friends for help. Anybody with a loud and crappy car was asked to do a few laps in front of the block during open day. The street was unusually busy that day. Everyone we knew found a reason to drive by. It was practically rush hour. Neighborhood number 3. We called out mates from the rugby club. Full contact football without any of that soft padding. A big portion of our club are very large men. The next door neighbors set up a barbecue in their front yard, and we offered free food and cheap beer. They came on motorcycles, wearing their roughest gear. There was quite a crowd. A lot of people showed up for open day. Quite a few were in and out within minutes. One lady sat in her car and watched the party next door before driving away. The one bloke who stayed any length of time was brave enough to start up a conversation with somebody leaving the party. He asked if they were often there and was told every couple of weeks or so. They have an after party morning, and the party the next night was 3 doors up. The party-goer also helpfully mentioned the troublesome drains that are always getting blocked by the tree roots and stinking up the place. The potential buyer left without making an offer. So my friends were the only ones to make an offer. They still had to pay more than they planned, but not as much as the greedy bastards wanted. My friends signed the papers and paid the deposit that day. So when the brave buyer put in an offer of $30,000 more than my friends, there would be nothing the owners could do about it. Strict anti-gazumping laws. I would have loved to see the owners' faces when they found out. For all the people who were saying they had cheap rent, they didn't. $400 was the rent in 2004, and that was pretty high back then. By the time the lady died, the average rent for a house that size had only gone up by about $40. Nowadays, 4-bedroom houses in that area go for approximately $800 per week. Someone in the comments says, out of vague curiosity, where did this happen? The person says Sydney, Australia. Ah, that makes sense with the dollars and British-esque language. Anyway, on to the last story of the day. That's the end of today's video. If you all enjoyed today's stories, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and all that other stuff. I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.